All right, let's just get right into it. If you're using Cursor AI with a local model, I'm guessing you've been having a really bad time lately. You had a setup that was working perfectly, and then one day, it just stopped. Poof, gone. Well, we're going to dive in and get you back up and running with the only method that actually works in 2026. So, first things first, if your local model connection in Cursor just died, I want you to know you are so not alone. What happened was a core architectural change from Cursor that basically broke thousands of setups overnight. And the worst part? Almost every tutorial you'll find online is now totally useless. So yeah, you're in the right place. We're going to get you the current working fix. Okay, the single most important thing to get your head around is this massive shift. The old way, just pointing everything directly to your local host, that's completely dead. It won't work. The new method, it requires a public tunnel using something like ngrok, and this is a big one, it now forces you to be on a paid Cursor plan. Honestly, this right here is the entire root of the problem. So here's the game plan. First, we're going to dig into exactly why your setup broke. Then I'll explain the new backend architecture that's causing all the chaos. After that, we'll walk through the step-by-step fix. And we're not stopping there. We'll even help you decide if this whole thing is even worth your time, and then we'll finish up with some pro moves to really master your new setup. All right, let's kick things off with section 1, why your setup broke. We're going to get right into the weeds here, all those frustrating errors and the outdated info that's probably been driving you crazy. I'm willing to bet you've seen at least one of these, right? That classic invalid model for your plan error, or the super helpful or having trouble connecting to the model provider. Or maybe you've been following some old tutorial desperately looking for a verify button that just doesn't exist anymore. All of these are just symptoms of the same root problem, and trying to connect directly to localhost, yeah, that's now the cardinal sin of this entire setup. Okay, moving on. This next part is the real aha moment. This is the key that unlocks why everything broke. We're about to explain the fundamental, behind-the-scenes change that made every old tutorial obsolete basically overnight. This is the entire reason for all your frustration. Cursor's brain, its backend that coordinates everything, it doesn't live inside the app on your computer anymore. It now lives in the cloud. So when it tries to talk to localhost, it's not looking for your machine. It's looking for a server down the hall from itself inside its own data center. Your laptop, it's completely invisible. It might as well not exist. And this really shows the before and after. The old way was beautiful, wasn't it? Super simple. Your editor just talked directly to your local model, a straight line. But now, look at this new architecture. It's this whole round trip. Your editor talks to Cursor's cloud backend, which then has to go out onto the public internet to find a public URL for your tunnel, which finally points back to your own machine. This is why that public tunnel isn't just a nice-to-have anymore. It's absolutely mandatory. Okay, enough with the why. Let's get to the how. Section 3 is where we get our hands dirty. This is the practical, step-by-step guide to get your local models working with Cursor right now. But hang on, before we start, let's do a quick hardware reality check, just so you don't waste your time. If you want to run a 7B model smoothly, you're going to need at least 8 gigs of RAM. For a 13B model, you really want 16 gigs. And if you try to run anything bigger without enough RAM, it's just going to be painfully slow. Honestly, for most people just starting out with this, something like Gemma 3 12B is the perfect sweet spot. So here's our 5-step battle plan. We're going to install Ollama and pull down a model. Then, and listen up, because this is the most important part, we are going to fix the core's issue before it even has a chance to bite you. Then, we'll set up that public tunnel with ngrok, get Cursor configured, and finally, test everything to make sure it's actually working. Seriously, pay close attention to this part. If you take away just one pro tip from this whole thing, let it be this. You need to set one single environment variable, Ollama origins, and set it to an asterisk. This one tiny step fixes like 80% of the connection failed errors people run into. By default, Ollama is paranoid and blocks requests from strangers like Cursor's backend. This one line just tells it, hey, it's cool, let them in. Now, when you actually get into the Cursor settings, the details are absolutely critical. Get these wrong and nothing will work. You're going to paste your ngrok URL, but do not forget to add /v1 right at the end. That's the path to the Ollama API, and it's so easy to miss. Then your model name has to be a perfect character-for-character match of what you see when you run Ollama list. And the API key? Yeah, you can literally just type Ollama or any random nonsense you want. It doesn't matter. Okay, so how do you know if it's actually working now that the handy verify button is gone? Simple. Here's the new foolproof test. Just open a chat window and ask it, what model are you? If it replies with the name of your local model, you are golden. It's working. But if it says GPT-4, that's the telltale sign that your connection failed and Cursor just silently fell back to its default cloud model without telling you.
All right, so let's assume you've got it working. High five. But now comes the bigger question. Should you even bother with all this? Is it worth it? Let's jump into Section 4 and talk about the real-world trade-offs.
When you look at the comparison, it becomes pretty clear. Yeah, local models absolutely crush cloud models when it comes to cost, and they can feel way faster for simple stuff like autocomplete. But let's be honest, for really complex, deep thinking and reasoning, a beast like GPT-4 is still in a different league. The real takeaway here is that it's not an all-or-nothing game. The smart move is to use the right tool for the right job, a hybrid approach. But let's talk about the money, because that's a big driver here. Let's put a real dollar sign on this. If you're a heavy coder, the kind of person who's always bumping up against the token limits on the Cursor Pro plan, switching to the hobby plan and offloading a lot of your work to local models can easily save you over $350 a year. That's not pocket change. So who should actually go through all this trouble? Let's break it down. Are you a solo dev or a bootstrap startup? Absolutely yes. The ROI is a no-brainer. Do you work in legal, finance, or healthcare? Yes, it's probably a great move for data privacy with some caveats. But are you just an occasional coder or maybe a content creator? Honestly, the maintenance overhead probably isn't worth the headache for you. And now for our final section. So you've fixed the problem, you've decided this setup is for you. Now it's time to level up. Let's turn you from someone who just got it working into a true expert with some powerful pro moves. Look, ngrok is fantastic for getting started, but it's not the end-all be-all. If you absolutely hate living in the terminal, you should take out LM Studio. It's all GUI-based. If you're tired of your ngrok URL changing every time you restart your computer, Cloudflare tunnels are a far more stable and free alternative. And if you're working with a team, you should really look into Lite LMM for a shared model server. And finally, here are a few quick optimizations to really dial in your setup. First, learn how to use a model file to increase the model's context length. It's a game changer for coding. Second, create a .cursorignore file to keep your sensitive directories out of the AI's context. And third, really lean into that hybrid approach. Use a zippy little 7B model for autocomplete and switch to a smarter, beefier 13B model for your serious chat sessions. And that brings us to the final and maybe most important question you have to ask yourself. Yes, the model runs locally. Your code is processed on your machine. That's awesome. But remember that new architecture? Your prompts and your code snippets are still routed through Cursor's cloud servers to get there. So the big question I want to leave you with is this. Is that private enough for you and your work? Something to think about. Thanks for joining me.